Hi, and welcome to week 3 in review. I hope you're having a great day. So, I just want to share my feedback from your discussions and your reflections, your deeper thinking reflections. So, for your discussions, the first question was, what is the goal of early childhood science education? And I sort of took what people said and I broke it down into three categories, sort of the what, the why, and the how. And for the what, people talked about a process, discovery or discovering for children, young children to discover, explore, observe, ask questions, experiment, test, express their thinking, discuss, inquire or engage in inquiry, investigate, research, predict, use reflective thinking, and analyze. All actions, the actions of science. And then why? Why should we have um, early childhood science education? For children to understand the world around them, to utilize mental and environmental tools to understand the world around them. So children become independent thinkers, to think like scientists, to use reasoning, to develop critical thinking, to develop confidence and self-assurance in their skills, and to develop habits so that they become confident learners and confident thinkers. And how should we do this? Through planned and spontaneous activities. And then the second question was, where does science fit in? And basically, everyone spoke to people who are in classrooms that they don't have enough time for science in their day, and that many people spoke to science sort of um, being pushed to the side, right? And so I posed a lot of questions. How does an inquiry or project-based approach to learning, how could that support science learning as well as early literacy, social emotional learning, math, and other concepts? So how can we think of a curriculum not just in time blocks, but in learning blocks, right? And that was a question that I posed to many people. 'Cause many people talked about integrating science with reading or other content. So how can we think about it a little bit more holistically? And then for question number 3 was about the three dimensions and which one you favored, or which one, I shouldn't say favored, which one was easier for you and which one was more of a struggle. So 13 people said that the scientific practices of the three dimensions was the one they felt most comfortable using. Three people said core domain knowledge. And one person didn't really respond clearly to which one they felt more comfortable with. Um, so just sharing that with us, we clearly feel more comfortable using the scientific practices. Um, and question number 4, um, I just want to share. There's a quote from one of our sources, uh, from the National Science Teachers Association, that says it's important that adults support children's play and also direct their attention, structure their experiences, support their learning attempts, and regulate the complexity and difficulty of levels of information. And that seems so top down and so imposed um, from teachers, from adults, right? Um, and to me, I prefer to think of it as, how can we as adults follow the children's lead and expand their opportunities for learning, which is just a little bit of a different way to state the same thing, but it's just a different vantage point. Now, moving on to the reflection, where people talked about their experience with Oobleck. First of all, many people loved this experience. Your enthusiasm was contagious through your posts. Michelle even thanked me for this assignment. Thank you, Michelle. I don't think in all my years of um, working in higher ed has anyone ever thanked me for an assignment. So you made my day. Um, Many people engage their family in this opportunity. So I am so thrilled that your family members got to experience this. There's some photos with some smiling faces of little ones, spoke just volumes for this experience. Many people made multiple versions and played around. You engaged in experimentation. You added more cornstarch, more water, less water. That is experimentation. That is what we're talking about. That is constructivism. That is what we're doing. Um, that's what we're learning about. And so you got to put it in practice. And connecting this to working with infants and toddlers. I love that Miracle's son tasted the oobleck. He found out it didn't taste so yummy, which is true. It's cornstarch and water, but also it's cornstarch and water. So if he wants to taste it, or any a toddler wants to taste it, it's okay because it's cornstarch and water. And if you use food coloring, it's safe for toddlers and even older infants to taste. I love that Alexia's I think it was daughter, Alexia's child, and her listened to it. Oh, that I have to say that made my day. But listen to the squishiness of it. Daisy either made it or is making it with her students. And one family talked about selling oobleck, which I just so entrepreneurial, but oobleck for sale. I feel like that's another Dr. Seuss book coming out. But I just love that. People made, as I said, multiple versions and engaged in that experimentation project process. Why? Because making oobleck is an art, not a science. Having made oobleck lots and lots of times in my life, it is definitely an art, not a science, which is part of this process. And you had the opportunity to engage in open-ended investigation and exploration. Many people dove into that, and so I so appreciate that you really got into it. And how can you foster that in your classroom and your local context? Um, I want to share some core domain knowledge with you now, going back to our discussion. Oobleck is a non-Newtonian substance, similar to quicksand, and someone actually made the connection to quicksand. I have zero experience with quicksand, and personally hope I never experience quicksand. So I cannot make that connection, but it is similar to quicksand. So, what is a non-Newtonian substance? It is a fluid that doesn't have consistent thickness. Okay, that means the thickness or the viscosity. That's the term we use to mean thickness. That's the vocabulary word that we would be learning. The viscosity changes when you apply stress or pressure. I'm moving my hand like I'm holding on to some oobleck now. Um, that is uh, that is what happens when you try to grab onto the oobleck. You're applying pressure, so it changes. The thickness is not constant; it's changing. So my question to you is, do you see any cross-cutting concepts from 3D science that you could apply to this experience or connect to um, what we've just learned? And my final thought, I just want to share that Taylor noted in her post that STEM is a process, not a product. And I'm rephrasing it a little bit from what Taylor wrote. Um, and which is very true. We want and we'll see in our future um, modules and our future weeks that STEM is a process. And part of that process, it's an iterative process where we try and try again. And sometimes our trials are successful, but we always learn from our trials, right? And I think some people engaged in that iterative process of trying, experimenting, learning. Some trials were successful, some not. So STEM is a process, it's not a product, right? And then Alexia said it's repeated experiences with facilitation. And we, as early childhood teachers and professionals, are the facilitators. So, with that, I hope everyone has a great week. And I look forward to seeing your discussion posts and reflections for next week. Be well.